And there's the beginning of the pre-show here on Spreely TV. This is the Rants of Izzo show on Spreely TV. All right, kids, you know what we do. It's the first couple minutes we kind of unwind it, or wind up, whichever one you want. And we do some housekeeping off the bat. This way we don't have to interrupt the show or anything. So this is brought to you by Spreely TV. It's Spreely.com. Go check it out for news, entertainment, social media, video clips. Look at this marketplace. Let's go see what has the market. Oh my gosh. You mean you could buy swag on here, like clothes and get, oh my gosh. You can go buy, you can actually support American if you're on here. What else can you do on Spreely? You can go to, Polling for America. We got to take care of that, corporate. Got to find out what that one was. I'll check that one out there. Look at some news. You want to find out some news articles on Spreely? You know, 52% Americans feel worse off today compared to 4 years ago. You can read about that on Spreely.com. Trump pledges executive order to end sanctuary cities if elected. Go read that on Spreely.com. Also, Flex Your Feminine. Sitting in the studio today is Kayla from Flex Your Feminine, so obviously we're going to have a show today. You can go to flexyourfeminine.com. While I have this up, can you kind of give a brief synopsis of what this awesome website and service is?
Yeah, so if you go check out flexyourfeminine.com, like Dominic's showing, you can see a little bit more about me and my story, how I got into fitness specifically. And then from there, you can download my app for free, kind of check out what I do for women specifically with their fitness journeys around honoring their hormones instead of fighting against their hormones like the majority of the fitness industry
We don't
does.
want that. Hormones,
So,
get your hormones set, ladies.
but we do. That's what we do. Nutrition and fitness for women.
And there are some, look at all of these testimonials on this website here as well, too. Go check it out, flexyourfeminine.com. Also, don't forget, everything else is service. I do this. This is a fun passion, and we love the show. But if you got stuff you need help with, and you want to promote your show on here, send an email, rantsofizzo@gmail.com, rantsofizzo@gmail.com, or you could text 708-982-0974 and say, I got a business that I want to promote. Over in the chat, let's take a look really quickly here. We got Kate Bergner. How are you? It's good to see you. Kelly Wilson, Franco. Morgan is in the chat. Bev! April Schoen. April Schoen. All right, let's have a show here on Spreely TV. Don't forget to download Freedom Hub app and Spreely TV for your smart TV.
Prepare yourself.
The opinions of the host and guests on this show are exclusively just that, opinions. That means that they shouldn't be the cause of your state of being offended. Why does everybody get so butthurt?
Okay, let's go. Ready, go!
Sit down, shut up, and pay attention.
Damn!
This is the Rants of Izzo Show with your host, Dominic Izzo. From porn to politics. We touch every third rail we can find. You might want to put your headphones on so your mom can't hear this. It's been called the most entertaining 60 minutes on the internet, and it starts now. Let's do this.
Hi, good afternoon. This is your Friday edition of the Rants of Izzo on Spreely TV. Hope you guys are having a great week so far. It's the end of the week. Going to close it out. Be back on Monday, obviously. Short week next week because I got 2 weddings in a row. I got so much stuff to do between Wednesday and Monday, and then oh my God, I'm going to be so damn tired. I don't drink those, so it's going to be pretty interesting. All right, it is Friday, and get right into it. If you haven't been following the last several shows that we've had here on the Rants of Izzo, it's been pretty controversial, very passionate, very heated. If you've only been covering some topics that you're just not supposed to topic or question or talk about, and if you've missed any
Just
of them,
a regular Friday for us, but apparently for the other days, it's quite heated.
I think it's because you're so laissez-faire when you talk about it. It's like you don't get passionate and heated about it. You're like, whatever, that it hasn't gone as noticed. Even though there are a few, like it's going neck and neck now. It used to be the number one downloaded episodes were always Lola. And then you came up screaming in the downloads, and then Matt and Scott's now are. So it's like, man, you guys are going, you guys are just blasting the show into the next level. So it's awesome. We've been talking very exclusively, and I'm trying to balance it out, not to bore the audience, but if you guys enjoy this, so be it. You can always send your feedback to text 708-982-0974 or email at rantsofizzo@gmail.com. In 2020 and 2021, I promised I would never kind of monopolize a topic like we did with the vaccine. It was non-stop. That's all and myself and another co-host I had just did. And it was almost like 6 months to a year's worth. And I'm like, I'm tired of this. I can't talk about it anymore. We're not there yet, but we're talking about Jewish culture. We're talking about the Jews. We're talking about Israel. We've been talking about that a lot because now I'm getting into it. Whereas before I would let other people talk about it. Now I'm finding myself going, there's a lot of validity and credibility to things that I didn't see there before. And you've been very gracious about your opinion. You don't offer it unless it's asked. Mm-hmm. And it's good, but I think we're all going to go into it today. You've seen my stuff. I put up some very polarizing, definitive statements, and the last couple of weeks have been, man, I don't think Hitler was the bad guy. Man, I think that this anybody who practices Judaism is practicing Satanism, and I doubled down today with a short video that said that also goes for Catholics, because I think the Catholic Church puts themselves above the Bible. That means you're satanic, and I'll talk about that too if anybody needs clarification, and as well as Islam. You're in the background with all of this, and you made a statement today in the DMs when we were going back and forth. You were talking about how like bloodlines were changed from Nephilim and this and that answers a lot of questions. I want to start with your 360-degree view. So the cat's out of the bag. There's Israel, and then there's Jewish, either faith, Jewish nationality. There's the truth, which is, we happen to believe it is Jesus. All of this, when people start getting really heated about these topics, do you ever start there? Like do you ever listen to people talking about this is right, that's wrong, blah, 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 and then interject? Or how do you handle these types of conversations? Or do you not and just go off in your own world of you're all wrong, I'm right?
No, I don't automatically just say you're all wrong, I'm right. But the first red flag to me when talking about really any issue, but the really, really polarizing issues like what we are having conversations about, and you've been having conversations about this past week, is if someone is getting super emotional, I don't engage. I will disengage, because I'm not going to fight the subconscious with my consciousness. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. So you're never going to be able to make a bull stop seeing red, no matter what you say, no matter what you do. Anyone who's been in a toxic relationship will understand that when you're in the middle of a heated argument, the other person's not going to see it your way, and you're not going to see it their way, because you're both bulls seeing red, locking horns. So even if I'm not seeing red, if the other person is, I'm just going to disengage, because it's not going to be a productive conversation, and it's not worth making an enemy over. It's also not worth risking me losing my cool too.
Here's where I'm starting to form an opinion, because I was Switzerland, right? I was neutral. And I say this all the time. If you start, and that's any group, it couldn't be any Black Lives Matter, could be LGBTQ. When you start telling me that I must pick a side, I'm not going to pick your side. I'm just not. And if you fast or rewind to right after October 7th of last year, and all of a sudden here's traffic in the Chicago area is being blocked by Palestinian protesters, I'm going, no, I'm not on your side. No, I want nothing to do with you. Since then, when you start, I don't know what your experience is. This is mine. When I start to question well, let's talk about this stuff. Like, was there really 6 million Jews who were killed? All of a sudden it's boom. How dare you question and blah, 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 blah. Now you're making me get defensive and I'm going, no, now I want to learn more because you didn't come at me the right way with this. You didn't soothe me into your side. Christians do that, right? If you don't accept the Lord and Jesus as your Savior, you're going to hell. It's like, well,
they beat each other up in the comment section,
right.
And I don't get into that. Yeah.
I'm reviewing the shit today.
And I think I commented on one of your posts. It probably wasn't this past week. I think it was a week ago or so about a different topic. But basically, I'm very clear on the order of the hierarchy here and where I stand. And when it comes to issues like right versus left, Republican versus Democrat, progressive versus conservative, Christian versus Catholic, or Christian versus Jewish. I am God's child first, period. Then you could say I'm conservative before I'm Republican, because conservative lines up more with my value systems that I've gotten from my study with scripture and my relationship with God as his child. And then from there, you could say that I'm a part of the Republican Party, but it's in that order. I don't get it confused. And it's taken me a long time to get to that point because, in the middle of 2020, when we were all talking about vaccines constantly, I mean, my other account that got completely shut down. I had, almost 40,000 followers. And I was one of those raging conservative, anti-vaxxer, pro-Trumper, MAGA, just sharing a whole bunch of fear porn all day long, calling it truth telling, and I was very much seeing red all the time. So it's an evolution for everybody at their own individual levels. So when Christians kind of get up in each other's faces in the comment sections of things, I'm an observer and I find it interesting to kind of get a read on the collective consciousness of where everyone is at right now. And I've watched that for years, but I will very, very rarely engage because it's not productive.
I think
it doesn't help anyone.
I all these little teeny tiny flashbulb moments are going off. I noticed that when I was a Catholic, I would vehemently get confrontational when somebody challenged stuff. And then the more I got into the Bible, it's the more you're just calm and relaxed because A, the end, B, the truth, and there's no need to fight over anything. And if in my philosophy always is, it could be somebody who is atheist, Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, I don't care what it is. I'm not going to be the deciding factor of whether or not they discover Christ, right? And I'm not going to come to them, force them and go, my religion's better and blah, 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 blah. I always thought that, well, once really discovering, the biblical teachings, I'm I'm just going to live with grace, offer them grace, and hopefully if they have other questions, then I'm a safe place to come to, because that's how I was converted from Catholicism into Christianity by an older buddy of mine who did the same thing with me. I'm shocked that anybody else with their, you said the word confusion. That's where it is. It's hard to be focused when you're confused. And then you're going to hold on to ideology. You're going to hold on to tradition. You're going to hold on to worldly things. And that's where when you start to question, if somebody came up to me and said, well, Jesus was a prophet. He wasn't this. He's not God. And I would go, that's cool. Awesome. I'm discovering when you challenge Jews in any way, they cannot handle being questioned whatsoever. The personal attacks come out, the insults come out. Some guy was ranting and raving in my comments last night. Jesus practiced black magic, and I'm like, that's cool, whatever, dude. But my experience so far is, if I'm looking for any truth whatsoever, instead of Jews saying, you got any questions, just ask us. It's, no, you're wrong, and how could you question this? It's I don't want to fucking talk to you now about this. It's insane.
It's very reminiscent of what we've all witnessed in the liberal side of what's going on in this particular country, with the transgender community and the sex change community, right? How defensive they get, how angry they get immediately. And it's no longer a respectful discourse or conversation. It is you just need to be wiped off the face of the planet because you don't see things the way that I see them, and I'm not interested in helping you see things the way that I see them. I'm interested in you not being in my way. That's what it comes down to. And that's the same energy I get from the people who tell us that if you are questioning history, the narrative that you've always been told, if you are not loyal to the nation state of Israel as it stands and what it does is completely unquestionable, then you are just in my way, and I don't have any time for you. And what I've come to learn is fear is very loud and confidence is very quiet.
Oh, that's damn sure.
If you look at Jesus and how he lived his life as an example, he was often, I think wrongly, that's not really the right word, but I think he was misidentified as a pacifist because he had such a quiet confidence. He just knew the truth. He knew the Father. He knew who he was. And we have forgotten. My people perish for lack of knowledge.
So here comes my question. This, and you and I, our history and relationship has always been epiphanies, right? Oh, dude, I thought about this. I thought about that, blah, blah, blah. And it's always been biblical. And I am somebody who loves just show me what to do and I will do it. I don't like room for interpretation on stuff. But as time goes on, I'm enjoying these kind of self-discoveries. I am not a fan of those people who leverage, well, Christ went in the temple and tossed the tables and he broke out the reeds and was whipping people. And I'm like, that's him. He's God. He could do what he wants. He calls us, commands us to love thy enemy and love thy neighbor as thyself. When it comes to the action portion, do Christians have it right or wrong when they express, of which myself did one time? I've got, sadly, the bio of my book includes Dominic Izzo is blah, 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 warrior for Christ. And I went, that's the stupidest thing I've ever put out anywhere, to think that God needs me as a warrior in a war he's already won. I am at this point where I don't think it's the Christian or the Christ follower's job to be confrontational, to be battle worthy against people who don't believe. I think that we are this war of heaven and hell. I think it's happening now more than I see it clearer than ever. But is our job, is it to flip the tables, or is it to be like, hey guys, we already know the story is, if you're not going to be there, you're not going to be there. And when he comes down and and you're like, hey, you're the Messiah. And he goes, get away from me. I never knew you. That's on you. Are we supposed to be flipping tables, or are we supposed to be like just preparing ourselves for the end?
I think that is a very individual question, because God has, I think it's in Romans where he talks about different vessels and different purposes, right? Where some vessels were created for humble purposes, some vessels were created for palaces, type of a thing. Everyone has their own calling on their life, their own purpose, their own role that they're supposed to play in God's family, because this is ultimately a family feud. If we go through the true history, this is a family feud. There was a divorce in heaven, and that's what started everything in the spiritual realm that we are now experiencing. And so I also believe that we are not told to put on the full armor of God and carry the sword of truth and wield the sword of truth if we are not soldiers in his army. So non-soldiers, citizens, don't wear armor for no reason. We don't wield swords for no reason if we're not a part of the army. So I think that there's a role to play for everyone, but are you on the front lines flipping tables, or are you in the kitchens feeding the soldiers, right? Like there's a different role for everybody in order to make this army function.
Put the fucking apron on me, man. Let me bake some cookies. That's fine.
And that goes back to, you really need to talk to your father and listen to the Holy Spirit for you personally and really do the work on making sure that you're not hearing your ego in order to keep you in the kitchens or put you on the front line.
Okay, so ego is what? What is an ego directly correlated to?
Well, it's different for each. It can translate differently for each person, but for some people, the ego is seeking spotlight, like the front lines, right? You want to be in the battle. You want to be doing the thing. That's a very like masculine energy. And then there's another side of the ego, the shadow aspect that could be that is more fear-based, and that will keep you in the kitchen, so to speak, because you're afraid of the front lines, even if that's where you're actually being called. So the ego is a part of our psyche that ultimately seeks either recognition from the outside world in an attempt to be safe and accepted by the tribe as a whole, or to keep you safe in the tribe as a whole by avoiding things like
I want the kitchen because I have an ego problem. I'm very egocentric, and I don't want to go out there, swing the sword, spill the blood, and go, yeah, I'm fighting this battle, and I don't want to be recognized. So that's why it's like humility. Where I was going with the ego is pride. And this is what kind of hit me the other day when I was talking about.
I'm not talking about pride when I talk about the ego.
I am.
So conversation.
When I started saying, I'm piggybacking off of something you said a couple weeks ago, was like the synagogue of Satan, and it's referenced in John and it's referenced in Revelation. And I was like, I've read and I've listened. Christopher Plummer does a great audio. There was a movie, The Gospel of John. You can find it on YouTube. It's 3 hours, and it goes word for word the book of John, and it's really accurate. It was done by Christopher Plummer, one of my favorite actors. And in there, you hear Jesus telling the Jews, the Pharisees, that your father is Satan. He's the father of lies. And I'm like, man, that's pretty fucking mean for this and that. So you fast forward a couple of years after I've like really been taking notice of John and what he's saying by that. And it kind of hit me yesterday after I got done with the show with Lola. So I had made the accusation with Scott and Matt a couple of weeks ago that Old Testament and Jewish practice is they've got like 600 and something laws. Can't carry your mat on the Sabbath, can't use electricity on the Sabbath, can't touch your wife if she's on her period, all this. And those are performance-based things. Follow my logic and correct me where I'm wrong with this.
Not given by God.
Okay, so we have that, right? If Old Testament, I'm strictly separating the two, Old Covenant and New Covenant. And this kind of hit me yesterday, and I did a video about it. I'm like, damn, this is really weird. So you got Old Testament, things you do, things you do, things you do, things you do. Then God comes along and says, you can't ever live up to my standard, so I'm sending my son to you. He's going to do the things you can't do. He pays the debt. Your role then is to accept him, and that's the only way to wind up getting to me. So now you have two polarizing and contrasting methods for seeking the Father. One is works, which we as Christians say works will not get you into heaven. The other is accepting a gift. If you look at that, and that's where I started. I said, well, that's satanic, because Satan was pride. And what do? Hey, God, look how many times I prayed to you. Look how many times I faced the sun and I bowed to you. Look how many times I didn't walk with my mat. You're basing it on things you do. That's satanic. Well, yesterday, fast forward, I'm going, you know what? Holy shit. I'm going to go deeper than that. Why? Even though I think Catholicism is satanic, I think Islam is satanic, I looked at Jesus being sent down on earth. He came as a Jew. I'm going, why? We had to have had, let's just say back then, 2,000 years ago, maybe there was 5 million people on the planet, right? You still had people in Asia, whatever the continent was back then. Still people in Russia, whatever the continent was back then. Up in the north, up in the west, all over the place. Why did he selectively come to the Jews? Unless out of all the people on the planet, God was going, you guys are following this satanic me, prideful way. Still, you're not getting it. I have to send my son to you to try to wind up leading you back to me. You're going to reject him. You're going to kill him. And then 2,000 years later, you're still going to fucking reject him. I think out of all the clans on earth, they were the most satanic, and he's trying to pull them out of their ways by sending Christ.
Okay. Can I tell you my perspective?
That's why I said it, so you can.
So I think you're confusing causation with correlation here, because what we know from the beginning of recorded time in scripture at the story of creation and the fall is that Christ's coming was already planned through the seed of the woman, right? When God, quote unquote, banished Adam and Eve and cursed the serpent, it was the serpent will bruise his heel and he will crush your head, right? And the son, the Messiah, would come through the seed of the woman. So we know that this was already planned from the beginning of time. And I'm not saying that God doesn't know the future, because he's all knowing, right? So he would know what you're talking about with where the Jews would have ended up by the time his son was going to be coming into this world. But the time was already predestined at the fall from the beginning. Okay. So that's number one. So I do not think that Christ being sent as a Jew to the Jews at the point in history that he was sent was some sort of reactionary move in a chess game on his part or God's part. Okay. Christ needed to come through the bloodline of David. And the reason why was because many, many bloodlines and the DNA, the genetic code of humanity had been assaulted and corrupted by the enemy of God. The image bearers of God were assaulted, and our DNA and genetic code were corrupted by the fallen angels and Satan.
Oh, yeah. Keep talking.
When Satan was cursed at the time of the fall, he knew what the plan was. He knew that the Messiah would be coming through the seed of the woman. Okay. What is he going to do? Let's corrupt the seed to make sure that that Messiah can't come. This is why we see what is labeled by many who think they are more righteous than God himself as genocide and unfathomable death and killing and persecution in the Old Testament. And how in the world can you worship a God like that, a God who's supposed to be love and grace, right? The reason why was because he had to protect the bloodline of his image bearers and the bloodline that the Messiah would come to us through, because the enemy was corrupting the genetic code.
Okay, so let me pause it for a second. Number one, all Catholic grammar school, right? 8 years. They never showed us the literal genealogy and bloodline. Anybody who ever has a question where he came from, beginning of Matthew. It says it in the very first page of Matthew, lists the whole damn bloodline. So there's that kind of, reinforces what I'm saying. If the enemy, Satan, was so focused on that Jewish bloodline, he had it in for them. It's almost
Were they Jewish? Were they Jewish in the garden though?
Is Jewish a nation, or is it an ethnicity, or is it a religion?
Right.
I keep getting conflicting answers for that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I do not know of one other culture on the planet. You don't know if it's, you're Jews at your heritage, or is it your religion?
Right.
So that kind of, you're kind of backing up what I'm saying, because it's like, why did Satan pick them?
Satan didn't pick them. Satan picked humanity. We are all image bearers of God. That's what I'm saying. So God protected the bloodline the Messiah would come through. This is why we had the flood. This is why Sodom and Gomorrah was obliterated. This is why you have the Israelites going into Canaan and killing all the Philistines and all the Hittites, like the genealogies, the clans that ended in ites in the Old Testament. They were all corrupted bloodlines. This is why when the Israelites would go and completely demolish an army that was, twice, three times plus their size, it was with the power of God, and God specifically ordered them, do not marry the women, do not eat anything that they are eating, because we had, even back then, it was like they had sciency, their version of science and spiritual warfare, black magic, was inbreeding different animals. So you'd have a cow inbred with a lion type of a thing, like a lizard inbred with a bird. So you weren't allowed to eat their food or contaminate yourself, contaminate your bloodline with this outside party.
We've touched
this
upon
is why,
this.
quote unquote, women and children were killed. And people are going to hate me for saying this because it sounds like I'm, pushing for genocide. I'm not. I'm trying to explain, not excuse the situation, because you're just not familiar with the actual history. These were giants. These were demigods, little g gods. This is why the first commandment in the Old Testament is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. It wouldn't be a freaking commandment if they didn't exist.
Well, we've only touched upon that stuff every now and then. We reference Rob Skiba and stuff like that. Let's break this down.
Gary Wayne is another one for those of you who are interested in the stuff that I'm talking about Nephilim, Rephaim, different bloodlines, the actual truth of what's been going on for our entire history and how we got here. You need to read Gary Wayne's books. He has 2 books, specifically the second one, if you are coming from a Christian perspective, and listen to every interview you possibly can that he does on YouTube. He is very generous.
You don't get priests or pastors who talk about Nephilim. No, they avoid it
because the seminaries don't teach it.
My own pastor, I brought up Nephilim once, and he's like, yeah, whatever. But I think it's been so underplayed. For those who don't know, the Nephilim were children of angels that were cast out from heaven, looked at the women we have on this earth and went, damn, I want to fuck that. They had kids with them. Those Nephilim did not have souls. The Nephilim were the reason for the flood. But it says after the flood, I don't recall which book, but there were Nephilim that did survive. If that's the case, anytime, because I've always wondered it, how can there be people who just go to hell? It just doesn't make sense to me. Or how can there be people who you look at, I'll give an example. We had a guy who murdered his wife once. He stabbed her like 40 something times and she was pregnant. And when I brought him his dinner in the jail cell, he looked soulless. He looked pure evil. And I'm going, how is that possible? I have to wonder how many human beings today are from that bloodline to where it's nothing for them to commit atrocity and evil, and we just chalk it up to psychos and this and that. That Nephilim bloodline was huge. It also validates Greek mythology, minotaurs, fauns. And if it validates Greek mythology and gods who lived back then, Zeus, Perseus, all these things, then that gives credence to the people who lived for hundreds of years in the Bible. And it goes hand in hand. It proves the Bible is real.
Yep. Greek mythology is not taught as mythology in Greece.
No, it's taught as religion.
Yep. Well, it's more than even what most people would consider religion. It's fact. It's history. In Greece.
And I believe it is. If you look at all the cross stuff too, you've got Roman gods and Greek gods are the same person. They have different names. And if you take it a step further, you and I have talked many times about
Persia, Egypt. It's all the same gods with different names.
We've talked about, if anybody wants to do this, they're talking about superstition today. Just go online for yourself and read Hillary Clinton's emails requesting for the tomb of Gilgamesh, who was also Nimrod. And you start to look at that. If you can come to terms with that email, do whatever research you have, it being legitimate, then you have to start asking yourself, why was the most powerful woman in the world asking for information about a made-up biblical figure? And then you start to cross-reference Apollo, Gilgamesh,
Osiris,
they're
why are there
always
obelisks all over the world
the
in
same
honor of Osiris?
person.
It's all part of the picture. The picture really starts falling together if you start following the breadcrumbs.
That's where I'm wondering when I start to look at this stuff, and then you cross-reference. We grew up with the concept that Hitler was obsessed with the cult, and Hitler was obsessed with UFOs and this and that and blah blah blah. How much validity? What other reason? Let's say this horrible thing, and I'm not accusing this. I'm saying it. If there is, I'm gonna have to piece this one together carefully. If you have a specific bloodline that 2,000 years later, Elon was saying that the Holocaust is the most researched event in history. And I counter with the Bible is the most researched document on the planet. And it has been proven that there has not been one first person, 20th person, any eyewitness account whatsoever who has ever, by threat or punishment of death, ever recanted and said, no, you're right, I made that whole Jesus story up. You've got eyewitness testimony. You've got translations that, yes, some differ, but they stay the same fundamentally.
Historical context has never been
changed.
Refuted.
It's never been refuted, never been changed. If that's the case, and you have an opposing bloodline, which comes from that area that is still today tooth and nail fighting. Jesus was a prophet. He was, like Ben Shapiro's words, he was a troublemaker who got killed for his trouble. If they're going to downplay him that much, is it a possibility that they are of the bloodline of the Nephilim, and Hitler was trying to eradicate that bloodline to prevent their spread of evil on earth? Just asking questions. And of course, that makes me a Holocaust denier.
There's also Nephilim and Rephaim bloodlines in the Aryan race, which is Hitler's area of the world. It is not unique to the Middle East. Let me put it that way. So, you are not safe just because you are in the Western world that you don't have Rephaim and Nephilim in positions of leadership, because they always have been. This is where the cabal, the deep state, the elites, this is how they get to where they are. Nothing is an accident. They still exist worldwide.
I want to pull this up because I played it yesterday. Lola sent it to me, the audio, and I listened to it again last night, and anytime somebody says the Jews are completely innocent, I'm not trying to say, it's not like you see a woman who's raped and go, well, you deserved it because you're wearing a short skirt and a low cut top and your tits are flopping out. But what did you do to contribute to the evils of somebody else, knowing this thing was evil, right? So I never want to say that, the Jews
It's like Lot's wife, right? Lot's wife died. She wasn't a participant in the sin that caused Sodom and Gomorrah to be obliterated by a pillar of fire, which was everybody wants to talk about how it was gay sex and sodomy, hence Sodom and Gomorrah, that got them obliterated. That was a fruit of the bloodlines in Sodom and Gomorrah being completely and totally assaulted by the enemy. There was no purity left in Sodom and Gomorrah. Morally, if you want to talk about sexual, proclivities, was just an outpouring of the bloodline being what it was and the genetic code being completely broken. So Lot's wife was given the opportunity to be saved with her family and leave that. And she was not, quote unquote, guilty of being a Nephilim or a Rephaim or having an assaulted bloodline genetic code in her own body or being a participant in these horrible proclivities. But her lack of responsibility in being able to walk away and see it for what it was, the evil that it was, and walk away from it, ended in her own death.
Didn't she long for it more than she was told not to turn and look back, but she
Correct.
did.
She looked back.
Then I'm loving these things like these people who go in these biblical research stuff. Like I truly believe they found Noah's Ark. There's no question. The wood, the measurements, all this, they found exactly where it is. They've got people who went where Sodom and Gomorrah was, and there's today still, there are balls of sulfur on the ground, and they show a pillar. There's a pillar there that they've tested as made of salt, and they go, this is Lot's wife. Why is it so hard to believe this shit is provable? But this is audio we played yesterday from Rabbi Yaron Revuin, not sure. This video alone, if this man is exposed to be a liar, then awesome. But none of what he's saying is a claim of passion or a claim of opinion, right? I'm going to play this. These are 3, I believe, reasons why Hitler's intentions were the way they were. This is coming from a Jewish rabbi.
Of YCOJ. Last reason I'm going to tell you. Who knows the first 2 laws that Hitler implemented? Hitler, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, first 2 laws that Hitler implemented that not only put him in a different status than everybody else for the rest of history, but also made what's called until this day the biggest financial miracle in history. Who knows the first 2 laws?
So I'll break down really quickly. Number 1, he doesn't praise Hitler for anything. And he consistently says in here that he's not justifying anything Hitler did. Number 2, we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago, was that if you look at Nazi Germany before World War II and after World War I, they were in completely dire straits. Hitler did dictate. He became a socialist. And what fascinates me is their country was in a state of financial ruin until the books were burned, which we were always taught was like literary geniuses, and they weren't. And Hitler then, he'll back this up, books were burned, which got people, pornography, got people focused better. They collectively came together under socialism, followed a dictator, and then raised their nation to a massive financial status. I don't agree with socialism, but that's where he started to come out of. So Hitler took a pile of shit and turned it into a 12-layer gorgeous wedding cake. But here we go.
Which that pornography was the creation of who?
Say that again?
The pornography was a weapon of war created by who?
This is one of the most, this is what he talks about. It's a Jewish rabbi talking about it, and he's accepting it. This, I've never heard of this before, and this made a very big game changer for me yesterday.
Okay.
Nuremberg laws. Before that, we're talking about years before it. Hitler first comes into power. What's the first 2 laws? Okay, I'll save you the time. Rule number 1, no more pornography. No more homosexuality. None of that garbage. Not allowed. Berlin, in the 30s, in the 20s, was the Sodom and Gomorrah of the day. They were the Las Vegas of the day. They were the Sodom and Gomorrah of the day. Homosexuality, pornography, all the bestiality, all the garbage of the world, that was the capital of the world. He outlawed it. You're no longer allowed, closed all the bars, all the gay clubs, all the production, which were all run by Jewish people, unfortunately. Second rule. What's this?
All run by Jewish people. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Pornhub is, Lola says, run by a Jewish rabbi.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to let me get that up really quick.
Pornography was created as a weapon of war. It's psychological warfare.
Because what do men do when we see porn? We fucking get distracted. 3 hours out of your day will go by because you're trying to find the right clip to fucking jack off to. You got no work done. You take away from your girlfriend or your wife when you should be focusing on her. Porn is. I get why. That's
the top side of it. But you and I have talked about the real deep rooted side of it. It's a portal.
Go ahead. The operator of porn. This is just from MindGeek. The operator of Pornhub, the controversial Wild Papa website, has been sold to Canadian private equity firm Ottawa Bay. Who created it? Okay, now I gotta say who created. I can't find that information. Bev, you're in the chat. I know that you're a super sleuth.
I'll send you some stuff. We can talk about it next week.
Here, Matt Keyser started it. But all right, let's continue with what he has to say here. But anyways, when you introduce porn to men, it weakens us. It distracts us. It completely, and when you desensitize your shit and you go from, look, there's man and woman in missionary position all the way up to, holy shit, is she blowing an elephant with a fucking midget riding its back? It's like you get desensitized over time. So you're massively depleted with your ability to be a proper man and lead. So
yes, you're creating soul ties that you're unaware of with these complete spirits.
Here's the three things. So you had Sodom and Gomorrah. You have, now he's talking about Berlin in the 1920s, which if anybody's ever seen Cabaret, it's a great fucking musical. That was set in 1929 Berlin. And Cabaret, go watch it. Fucking one of my favorite productions. And then now you have America. So these are repeating patterns. And
which we know, Operation Paperclip, we brought who over here after World War II?
The Nazis.
Werner
von Braun started NASA.
Second rule was you're not allowed to charge interest. No more interest. Now you would think, why? What does he care about interest? Well, because all the people that had the money, that lent the money out, were Jews. He didn't like it. So he said no more interest. Why? Because of the high interest that the Jews charged people was so high, it destroyed the economy in Germany. They destroyed, just like they destroyed Russia. A few years before that, through their communism over there, Jews destroyed Russia. Not Goyim. Jews destroyed. Communism is by Jews. Well, don't let anybody confuse you. You look at history, Karl Marx, all the other Reshaim, they're all Jews. Wicked, but nonetheless Jews. They destroyed Russia, and he wrote in chapter 2 of Mein Kampf, they destroyed Russia, now they're destroying Germany, that's why I have to destroy them. Now, this doesn't make he's right. The point is, that's actually real, true history. Now, he saw that the Jews are controlling the financial system and they're charging such high interest, they destroyed the German economy to the extent that by the time you arrived to go to the store to buy bread, you had to take a whole horse carriage full of money. By the time you arrived at the store, it wasn't enough. Why? Because the inflation rate was so high. The bread became so much more valuable and your money went down. So now he says, what's the cause of this? Because nobody could afford to do anything because the interest rates are so high. So he decided no more interest rates. You're not allowed to charge interest rates. And at that time, the Great Depression was happening around the entire world. Everyone was in a financial collapse. America was a financial collapse. England was a financial collapse. Everybody else was collapsing. Germany collapsed worse than everybody else. But after he passed this law of no more interest, within 6 years, Germany became the leading, wealthiest economy in the world.
Okay, so we have there. It's an attack on their culture. Can you imagine you have a shit economy, a lost people after World War I. Your country is downsized to half the size it was. Just look at a map of Germany before World War I, then after, and you build it up. You crack the whip. And Hitler was Catholic. Hitler was very faith-based. And then you have people. This is the only thing that that during the Monday discussion was talked about is it sounds like, well, the Jews came into Germany, they ruined everything. They were already there.
Yeah.
My question is then, how do I say this? Well, this is a free speech network. You hear Jesse Lee Peterson, who's the black pastor who is online all the time. He talks about the fact if you get rid of all whites out of America, America will be destroyed in a few months. If you take a group of blacks and you move them into a neighborhood, it will be destroyed, right? And it's not racist. Just look at Section 8 homes and stuff like that. That, to me, because of pattern recognition, these are my words, not Kayla's words, shows that there is some correlation between behavior and that culture. Can that same litmus test be applied with Jews? Culture and behavior. Could... If we are being intellectually honest, yes. Okay, so was Hitler like, listen, motherfuckers, I just built this economy from nothing. I got people out of addiction. We have a 0 unemployment rate. Things are great, but you're going back to your old ideas. You're introducing porn into our economy. You're charging interest and you're destroying it. Was he just at his wit's end of like, these people got to go?
I find it curious that what have we seen Putin do?
Well, no, we don't know. We're not allowed to know about it because why is he?
Oh, he's outlawed porn.
Okay.
And he's going back to gold-backed currency, not fiat. Isn't this interesting? That he's being labeled as another Hitler dictator, but look at what he's actually doing.
Well,
I lost a whole friend group because I was actually way more pro-Putin during the Ukraine shit popping off.
Because they wouldn't tell you why.
Ukraine.
Nobody. And I hear too now that the real Nazis who were the horrible threats to Jews were those in Ukraine. They were ones who were very, very, very brutal to them, but you're not getting any coverage on that whatsoever.
Yeah. And again, look, going back to like what we've mentioned about the synagogue of Satan that Jesus calls them, this is the Khazarian mafia, which has its roots back in Ukraine, actually.
What? Hello, that's new. Please explain.
Well, I mean, it goes back to bloodlines. And I'm not saying that they are limited to Ukraine, but the Khazarian mafia is this synagogue of Satan that I talked about last week. It's part of that synagogue of Satan that hides behind the Jewish faith and people and intermixes, right? To where you can't tell the difference.
Speaking of intermingling.
They love if we question the narrative and go super far to one side like a Stu Peters and just blame all Jews. Mm-hmm. They love it because we're attacking, quote unquote, the Messiah's bloodline.
Do you have any female friends who are Jewish?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do they date outside of their heritage or religion?
Well, one of them has, but the other one, no.
Yeah, Greeks and Jews almost refuse to date or marry outside of their culture.
Yeah,
they don't do it.
You should not be unequally yoked is the phrase used. And same thing with Christians. Like, a Christian really shouldn't be marrying an Islamist, shouldn't be marrying a Buddhist. And culture would like you to think that you should. There's
a little bit more to this, Rabbi. But so far, if that's all you heard, if you heard that you've got a great community and people come in and introduce toxic porn and interest rates that were drowning people financially, would that not be enough reason to go, okay, we hate you. You got to get out. It's not, to me, that's not an unreasonable request to be like, your behavioral patterns trying to assimilate in our culture are not working. This is why America is drowning, because the floodgates are open, allowing people to come in from other cultures to do their stuff, and then you're mocking them. They're not eating cats. They're not doing that. It's not about the cats. It's about the culture and the failure to assimilate. It's all it is. Let's continue.
Well, and it's no different. It's just a macro version of your own home. Like if you had a child who was bringing in prostitutes and drug abusers and trashing your house and leaving the doors unlocked for all types and kinds to come in and take advantage and destroy your home and put your entire family at risk for disease and death and abuse, would you continue to give that child a key?
No.
Would you continue to have them as a part of your family, just welcome with no consequences, no boundaries, no repercussions?
Well, you see it all the time with liberals. You see it all the time with liberals. Let's open the border. Sure, give them a key to your home. Well, no, you can't. Well, it's the same. But then the argument is, well, as far as Germany goes, Jews were already there. I want to finish this up, but I want to make another point in a second.
A financial miracle. Why? They were the only ones that were bold enough to stop interest. This is one of the biggest reasons of why he hated Jews. Because they destroyed the economy because of their greed. Rabotai, it's not making him right. Don't let this confuse you. But this is happening again. The cash advance business right now is destroying the economy in America. Why? Because all of the people that are defaulting, all of the people that are being stolen from, guess who they are? Small businesses. Small businesses are what build economies, not big businesses. Coca-Cola, Apple, Google, Amazon, all those big companies, they're good for business, but they're not the economy. What makes an economy, what makes an economy prosper is when there's small businesses starting and small businesses flourishing, because they are the ones that actually hire the most amount of people. If you have small business grow, your economy grows. You have small business decline, your economy declines. I was in the financial business for 20 years. This is one thing you can't challenge. Now, when you have an industry that their number one objective, directly or indirectly, is to destroy small businesses, guess what? This is happening again. And you'll see, if nobody listens to me, nobody listens to the Torah, nobody listens to history, and everybody ignores it, this is going to be a huge blow-up to the extent where you can see how Edom, just like the Torah says, Edom is going to come back again, Edom becomes America. Edom becomes America. Why? Because America is Edom, after all. But you'll see what happens. And you'll see that all of a sudden the 6 million Jews that are in America, that feel comfortable, that are sometimes in government, that are sometimes in politics, that are running big businesses, and so on and so forth, guess what? Same exact thing happened in Germany. We were in politics, we were in business, we were prospering, we were great. In Germany, same exact thing. In Greece, same thing. In Rome, same thing. In Egypt, same thing. But guess what? We get greedy, we get sinful, we become Reshaim. What happens? Hashem says, oh, you want to be Reshaim? I'll punish you. With what? With the same goy that you wanted to become like.
People were bringing this up in the comment section of the day that the Jews were kicked out of 109 nations. And I don't have verification for that. But here I have a question. It's like, here are expulsions. Jews were kicked out of Australia in 1421. England in 1290. France, 1394, Hungary, 1394, and then in 1360, Lithuania, 1495, Milan, 1597, Naples, 1510, Nuremberg, 1499, Portugal, 1497, Sicily, December of 1942, or 1492, Spain, March of 1492, Yemen, 1697. With that many, why are they repeatedly kicked out of so many countries?
There's a pattern. It's a pattern of abuse.
So was Hitler the one then? Let's play pretend. Hitler finally says enough of this shit. These people, racist term, you people, these people, clearly have an ulterior agenda. We have to stop this. Well, then there goes into the two questions. Is Jewish a bloodline? Or is it a religion? Because you can stop a bloodline, but you can't stop faith or ideology. So if he went to eradicate a people, you better make sure that they are a bloodline, if that bloodline is of the Nephilim and all that. And then that will eradicate a problem. And then Hitler goes down in history saying, I'm going to be vilified. They're going to write me as the bad guy. I'm going to be all this. I don't know if that was his intent or if it's just like Jews come to the table and always say it's just anti-Semitism. There's no other reason than we were picked to be hated because we're God's chosen. I'm not buying it anymore.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
I think that it's a rabbit hole that everybody needs to dive down for themselves if they are actually interested in knowing the truth.
Yeah.
And the conversations that you've been having all week, the conversation we had last week and we're having today, and we'll continue to have conversations. Like, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's only so far we can
Iceberg,
go.
that's a Jewish last name.
There's 12 tribes of Israel, right? And they are scattered across this entire planet.
So it doesn't mean they're limited to just one people.
Does not mean they're limited to this little, country that the Rothschilds set up in the Middle East.
So there could, theoretically, I could be Jewish. I could be of Israel, a tribe somewhere.
You could be. And even if you're not part of the bloodline.
We're adopted in.
You are grafted in.
Yep.
We are.
Ooh, I bet you they hate that. I bet you hate that. I wouldn't
And
have cared.
regardless, we are all God's image bearers. So
I wouldn't have cared. I would not have cared if it wasn't such a big deal made of how dare I ask to begin with. Well, guess what? Now I fucking want to know. So, guys, have a great damn weekend. Go check out flexyourfeminine.com for health wellness services that are phenomenal. I fully endorse Kayla and Flex Your Feminine on Instagram and all that great jazz. Big thanks to Spreely for the phenomenal production you guys do every damn day. You guys have a great weekend. Go help somebody today. And if you can't help them, do not hurt them.